Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. Um, I feel like some of this episode was good, and the other parts of this episode seemed like it was a waste. It seemed like they could have just left certain parts out, certain people out, and the show would have been fine. Um, Fortunately, we get kind of a bit of a mess with this episode. So I want to talk about some of the stuff that I liked, and then we'll talk about all the other stuff that was there because reasons. Let's talk about the whole Curtis and Portia scene. So at some point, they all meet together and they all kind of split up. You got Curtis and Portia talking. Now, I had to be completely honest. I was so not comfortable with Curtis telling Portia about Marshall's mental health status. Now, I know that Curtis was like, well, Marshall gave me permission to sit there and tell you this, so I'm gonna sit there and tell you. But I'm like, something about that just didn't feel right. Anyway, he talks about her. I mean, he talks about his schizophrenia and everything like that, and that's the reason why he left. And now Curtis is sitting there praising him. Talking about, oh, he left, for our benefits, and he left to sit there and spare us, and he came back years later and he told us, and it was so brave, and yada yada yada. And I'm like, I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't feel that way at all. Like, I really don't feel that way at all, and I don't understand why is Curtis doing this whole emotional 180. Let's not. I get that he's glad that you know Marshall opened up to him, told him about the reason why he left and everything like that. But even with that being said, the fact of the matter is, your dad left you for years. And I get that at the time, mental illness and everything like that was still kind of a new and relative thing. But, I mean, and that's another thing. You're totally okay with the fact that he only came back here like now because you opened up a music club. So you're a cop and you were struggling and stuff like that, and he was just like, "Oh man, that's really terrible." Yep, I think I got a club to play at. Like you're just totally fine with that. I know for plot purposes, this is the way it has to go, and this has become unfortunately one of my favorite quotes. I don't really like saying it because it sounds like I repeat myself, and I think at this point everyone already knows what I'm going to say. I'm going to sit there and say it anyway. Say with me if you know what I'm going to sit there and say. Plot over logic and common sense. At this point, you should have kind of already knew what I was going to say. Um, but yeah, then they talk about that, and one of the things that I think Curtis mentioned it was, could Marshall's schizophrenia be passed down to him? At that point, got Portia worried. Got Portia worried, and we all know why it got her worried. Um, he did agree to do some sort of genetic counseling or whatever. I don't understand why they call it genetic counseling. Anyway, he agreed to sit there and take the test this way. He can know what to prepare for in case he may have it too. Now at this point, he left to go do something, and then Portia wound up calling, I guess, one of her colleagues or whatever, and about like a genetics to speak to a genetics person or whatever, because at this point we already know since it can be passed down, most likely if Trina's father really is Curtis, and she's going to want to know if Trina can possibly have schizophrenia, because that may play a part in this whole trial thing. Now earlier, it was this part where Portia was not there helping Epiphany study for her MCATs and everything like that, and it didn't really go anywhere. But I guess it was somewhat of a nice moment if you are, um, I don't know, a fan of any history. I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't really particularly care for that scene. Um, it was one of those things where Portia was like, well, don't give up. I got little study tips and stuff like that. And, Epiphany said it, and she said it, what she said made so much sense. It was easier when Portia was doing it because she was younger. She had more energy and more time to sit there and dedicate herself towards her studies. Um, Epiphany is a lot older. It's a lot different, and just in general, it's a lot more difficult to sit there and learn as you get older, in certain aspects or whatever. So, um, I thought that was kind of interesting. Other than that, it didn't really go anywhere. Now, conversation between Marshall and Epiphany was an interesting one because Epiphany told Marshall that she's going to be, she's going to be a doctor and everything like that. Marshall was really happy, and in the beginning, it seemed like Epiphany was kind of upset at the fact that you told me to sit there and go for this whole doctor thing, and then when I do, you just bounce. You're just gone. Um, then towards the end of the conversation, you know, Marshall's like, hey, we didn't sit there and get that second date. And, Epiphany's like, are you asking me out on a second date? And, he made some sort of sassy comment like, yeah, then they both started laughing. I'm sitting there thinking like, you do realize that in a lot of ways, I mean, granted, Marshall didn't ghost her. Okay, Marshall left because he left. But I'm going to be kind of honest. I'm just like, is that a guy you really want to get involved with? Somebody who just leaves on a whim? On top of the fact that they were getting close, and then he decides to leave. He comes back, and they just magically pick up where they left off at. I feel like that should be, in itself, kind of jaded to the idea of going back out with him. On top of the fact that this guy's known for just leaving on his family on a whim, on whatever. You're not family. What the hell makes you think he's not just going to sit there and just leave you like that? I don't know. I just look at that whole thing. When they started laughing, I was like, that's so funny. She's going to sit there and choose to go out with him again. That's just so hilarious. Now, while Ava's not there questioning Spencer's motives and everything like that, like, hey, you're being all protective of Trina, but at the same time, your girlfriend is Esme, and Trina done all this horrible stuff to Esme, so shouldn't you be team Esme, not team Trina? Like, what's going on? So while she's sitting there trying to break down Spencer, um, Nicholas is trying to make sure that Esme keeps her damn mouth shut. And I have a couple of times listening to talking, he's like, yo, keep your damn voice down. Like, I thought it was funny, but I'm just like, bro, you did this to yourself. Um, Now, there's one point where Esme hugs Nicholas. Now, at some point, the parties all leave, and Nicholas is with Ava. And when Ava Ava smelled um, Esme's perfume on Nicholas, like, because she's like, oh, I know that smell. That's Esme. Like, what? Why do you smell like Esme for? He just had that look of shock on his face. Where it was like, nah, bro, I'm waiting. I got a bunch of snacks I'm waiting on. What brilliant answer are you gonna sit there and come up with? I think he came up with something along the lines of, "Oh, I guess she must have smelt it on her," and I was talking to her, and it was just like, bro, you act like she sprayed it on her so hard that when she walked past you, you just got a whole whiff full of it. Like, come on, bro, that's the best you can come up with. Anyway, towards the end of this conversation, Nicholas asked Ava for a divorce, and I'm just like, what? I genuinely want to know. I genuinely want to know why. He's so nervous about making sure that Ava doesn't find out about his one night stand with somebody who is barely legal. I just don't understand like why you would sit there and ask her for a divorce. Like I really don't understand that. So Trina and Jocelyn got back got the email back about the Title IX. And long story short, I think at this point everybody knows what the email was going to be. I knew what that email was going to sit there and say yesterday. I already knew it. And I'm going to be completely honest. I wasn't even mad at this point. I mean, I'm just like, man, when this whole thing is over, I seriously hope Trina sues them for everything that they're worth. Go on YouTube, make some sort of video, or whatever. I don't know. I'm a petty person. Okay. Um, but I also feel like it's just wrong now, especially if when this whole thing is over and it comes out that she is innocent. What's the school going to sit there and say? Oh, my bad. Like, what's going to end up happening with that? Anyway, they open it up. They already know what it is, and at this point, Trina. Okay, I'm having a hard time trying to understand what Trina is doing, because now she's like, I want to sit there and take care of Esme by myself. I don't want nobody's help from anyone. Rory was outside. He comes in there, and Rory and Jocelyn's like, yo, listen, you're gonna need all the help you're gonna get. Um, because Jocelyn's like, yo, I need you to sit. I want to sit there and break them up. And at this point, Trina doesn't want Rory to get involved. And I understand her not wanting to get Rory involved. But Jocelyn, your number one girl, like you don't want her to get involved, like really? So Trina's like, listen, we need to sit there and try to break down Esme's story to get to the bottom of it. I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, all this gusto, and you really thought about that. Like, why was you not sitting there thinking about that sooner? Now, granted, I get it. A lot happened. Everything hit her all at once, and whatever. But I'm just like, so your brilliant idea is to go at this alone? Like, really? Okay. It was really crazy. Is that Carly is getting Sam to sit there and dig up some dirt on Esme and stuff like that as far as the story. Just sit there and try to get some information to help Trina. But Curtis is just like, man, I'm a PI too. Maybe I should be sitting there looking into this stuff. Nah, I'm just gonna sit there and deal with the whole Marshall stuff. Like, I get that he has this whole, I get that he has the whole Marshall thing going on, but I'm like, why is Carly Smith there, the one that's trying to reach out to a PI, when Portia is dating a PI, and you would sit there and think, like, anything? Nothing? Nah, of course not. We don't want to sit there and disrupt the plot. We don't know how to plot. You know how important the plot is. Felicia, Mac, and Ryan. So Mac comes up in Ryan's face, and he starts like being like, oh, well, I know we're supposed to sit there and offer you some sort of medical treatment, but if I had it my way, X, Y, and Z. And I guess this was a fantasy of Ryan, because he bites. I feel like I'm like, at this point, am I watching Hannibal or something? Like, this literally seems like a scene from Hannibal. He bites Mac's neck, and then he looks at Felicia like he's about to, I don't know, eat her or something. And granted, this is all inside his head. Um, but we know when that's said and done, Felicia, and this is where we get into conversations and things of, this is where we get into the point of, they could have just kind of cut some of the stuff out. Like, even if they did have to show Felicia in there, and I understand that because of Ryan's connection, I felt like this whole conversation about the baby, and I was just like, no, no, we're not doing that. Especially when Felicia, I really did think about how to approach this. I really did think about how to approach this, because I understand that the actress is going through the worst thing imaginable, and so I kept sitting there thinking, should I use kid gloves at this one? Should I use kid gloves at this one? And I want people to understand that I'm talking about the character and not the actress, because I feel like I just trying to be soft with characters is just not really my strong suit. I mean, I can if I really have to, but it's just not really my thing. Now, there's one point where they talk about babies and stuff like that. And, Felicia's like, well, no, because you gave me the gift of raising two, beautiful girls, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm just like, Felicia, you, you really want to sit there? You really want to sit there and talk about you? Okay, you raised them. Okay, you raised them. Sure, you raised them. That's okay. All right, whatever. Well, after that, Matt gets called away. And at this point, Felicia is sitting there looking at the door because Esme came in there. At first, Esme comes by the security guards and they're like, oh, there's no visitors. But I guess one of the guards recognized her from Spring Ridge. She's like, you can go in there, talk to Ryan or whatever. So she goes in there, she talks to Ryan. And, the first thing she's like, hello, daddy or whatever. So I'm like, listen, if anyone was on the fence at this point about Ryan, about Ryan being Esmer's dad, it's put to rest at this point, okay? Is officially put to rest. But when she comes in there, she's like, hello, daddy, and she tells him about, the fact that she hooked up with Nicholas. Now, I'm gonna be honest, this dude is just I get that he's a serial killer and everything like that, but the fact that his first reaction was to smile, I'm just like, your baby girl just told you that she had sex with Nicholas to break up their marriage, and your first response is, if I can get up, if it wasn't for these guards, I would get up and hug you. What? What? Okay. And of course, she's not. Of course, she's not happy with the fact that Esmer's like, yeah, I didn't say anything to Ava yet. I'm sitting there playing the long game or whatever. And at this point, Ryan is once again disappointed. So I'm just like, listen, if she wants to sit there and get something out of this messed up deal, then I'm not going to sit there and knock her. I mean, I know at this point she probably wants to, get pregnant and, get some of that casted out money. Like I said to somebody in the comment section. Uh, hmm. He's not happy. I don't know what the hell he actually plans on doing, but he's not happy. You know what, Ryan? I don't even trust him. He could probably get up, find something, and stab her. At this point, his morals are just all over the place. He is just dangerous. I would not be surprised. Let's just put it that way. More stuff that I would have probably cut out of this whole episode. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't like terrible. It wasn't the worst thing ever. But you have Finn, you have Gregory, Greg. I'm going Greg. I don't care. You got Finn, you got Greg, you got Cam, you got Violet, you got Laura, and I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Now Cam isn't really too happy. He leaves. Laura goes to follow him. You got Finn that's sitting there talking to Gregory as far as trying to get Liz's parents involved. But Greg is like, listen, the best way we can sit there and help Liz is by taking care of her boys. Taking care of her boys, taking care of Violet. That's how you're going to sit there and help her. And, I mean, granted, he's right. He is right. I mean, it's really terrible that they don't even check up on their daughter. Like, right now, their daughter is literally in a mental asylum, in a mental clinic. And they have no idea because they're, I guess, too busy fixing the rest of the world, but they can't be bothered to sit there and check up on their daughter. I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. Part of that just actually really irritates me. I get that they're not on screen, but it's just like, damn, these are some terrible ass parents. Anyway, he's right about that. He's also teaching Violet how to do some sort of, I don't know, string or box tying or some crap that I'm gonna be honest, I really didn't care about. Um, anyway, she was smart enough to fix it, so that's cool. Now Laura wants to convince Cam to, go on a camping trip, and she does convince him because at first, Cam is like he's not really, he doesn't feel like he should be happy and hanging out and stuff like that while his mom is in a mental clinic. But she expresses to him that it'll be better for his mom to know that that their boys are doing good. So long story short, he does convince she does convince him to go on a camping trip. Spencer comes by and Spencer's like, hey, listen, I'm gonna be quitting because I'm gonna be doing another side project that I don't want to sit there and tell in front of her. Now at this point, Cam is like, at first, Spencer's like, well, I'm gonna be sitting there getting 10K, and Cam is like, you mean like a month? And Spencer's like, no, a week. What are you nuts? You know who I am, pretty much. Um, but Cam is like, listen, you can quit tomorrow, but tonight you doing this night. Because you got to do the whole camping trip. So he's like, I'm doing you a favor because you better, you're sanity wise, you're much better off working here than you are dealing with Esme and Nicholas and Ava. So I'm doing you a solid, trust me. So he decides to stay and, do one last job. And Laura's all like, oh, well, since you got your back your money from Ava, what did you offer her in return? And I'm just like, I mean, granted, it is an important question, but I just feel like sometimes I feel like Laura does a little bit too much. I get that she has to do it because Liz isn't there and, well, Courtney isn't there. Sometimes I just feel like she's just very involved with everything that's going on. It's like, I don't know, sometimes I just feel like she just does a little bit too much. But I guess, in all reality, she kind of got to fill those roles. So I did forget to say at some point, because Felicia's not there watching the door. And, she sees, two security guards there, but she is walking towards the door like she's going to just walk in. Um, Now I'm assuming when she gets in there, because if you saw the previews, she's like, what's going on? Or you're not going to get away with this, or some other Scooby Doo line that she says. I'm assuming that by the time she gets in there, Esme is going to be there, and they're going to sit there and act like, everything is normal or whatever. Um, so I guess we'll just wait and see about that on Monday. Hmm, I feel like that's about it. I feel like that's about it. One of the things I was going to sit there and say, there is another, I can't pronounce her name, but there's another soap opera reviewer. She does all four soap operas. Now, I was sitting there looking at the time, as far as how long it takes, each, like how long is each one of her reviews. And GH, of course, is probably the longest one, being like 19, 20 minutes. And I find that really interesting. Anyone that actually reviews GH is usually around 18 or 19 minutes. And sometimes I'll think about that. I'm just like, I try not to go over time, but I also realize that 20 minutes is reasonable as far as trying to get through everything. Like when I do BMB, it's like maybe 12 minutes, 10 minutes, 11 minutes. And that's usually me just talking, not just about the recapping stuff, but just my own thoughts and opinions. So, BMB is usually the shortest one, followed by Days. Y&R is Y&R is as long as this. Because Y&R would just throw in a bunch of characters because reasons. So I was sitting there looking through her thing, and I'm just like, man, 19 minutes, that seems about right. Hell, even with Brock TV, it's usually around 19, 20 minutes long. I remember one time, I think it was like maybe a couple years ago, I was watching Brock TV's videos, and it was like 30 minutes long for GH, and I'm just like, I mean, granted, this is before I started doing my own. I was like, dude, like, dude, what, what are you talking about in this episode? But I remember one time I actually was like at 30 minutes with my review, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Hell, right now I'm at 24 minutes. So with that being said, I'm gonna go. I want to thank you for watching. Be safe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Have a great, safe, amazing weekend. And I'll see you in the next video.